He started a chartered company. This guy kind of didn't want to. He likes the idea of merging and having a bunch of shares. I'm not quite sure of the thinking, but that's where he decided to go. He had the cash. He could have done a chartered company, but it ended up he could start the corporation at 86 if he floats it with priority and nobody else floated a company. Well, even if somebody else did, because he would have priority no matter what, so he could sell all his shares without them being impacted. This guy would have liked to, but when he calculated out his money, he did not have enough to start a corporation at the price he wanted to start it. So he decided to start it as a partial cap, which works okay as well because, one partial, one non-partial. I'm iffy about the idea of two partial cap companies working together, but we'll see. Because partial caps start out with less money is the big deal, but with a lot of shares on them, maybe we can float things through. Other players are all taking advantage of arbitrage to grab WNRs and ESRs, which are the two shares that are out there that were above their share value, although they're kind of dropping a little bit in terms of the advantage. Both of them, though, are two-train freight companies that, may get another run with their two trains before that comes. A little iffy, but not terrible. I mean, nobody's got two C trains, so and they're higher up in the stock value, so they're more likely to get that extra run. But the new companies that are starting, the L&D, which gets in close here, it's running a local train, and that works well enough with the freight, and also the WNR has connections to local routes that are pretty good all over the place, to tell you the truth. Although, oh no, N goes into a 6 web once the brown comes out, so I'd be getting into this one too. So I have like 3 different decent local routes right near me. Yeah, are 3 different exits for local routes. For him, the WSTL, the important point here is it was the only freight train available, and he thinks he can make it there. Is the freight absolutely vital? No, but it's pretty damn good in combination with this. He could have also gone with a local, which might have been appealing. But N and B, which he's really close to hooking up, would be just another express that doesn't really help him. So he would have had first shot at the L&D. Wasn't terribly excited by it. It's not trivial to get to. He could get to it this way and maybe hook up. And the L&E, which is a little closer, but this would have to get hooked up, which it's going to, but he doesn't know quite when. If he's going to be hooking up to this, he might as well go for this and get the freight train, right? Because that freight other kind is really a nice combination overall. He would have much rather one of these 2 freight trains. Those are much more appealing to him. However, they wouldn't be available this turn. Maybe on the next stock round, but in that case, he would have been buying up shares of this to float it out a little stronger. But he likes the idea of getting this energy working as fast as possible. And honestly, you don't need, the dot or whatever that your home company comes with. You can get some other crap with it. So that's not too terrible. And he'll be getting at least one other dot, which could maybe go here or something. I don't know where. We'll see. At this point, we're just going to be filling out, buying up, the rest of those companies, as well as people filling out their portfolios as best as they can. When we look at the poor Y and N, I mean, that guy's just so hosed. Point something out that I do when I sell shares, and there's a possibility I might want to buy them back. Obviously, the people starting companies, I know where their money's going, but for example, with him, he sold a share of EUR. I give him a token just to remind me that he can't sell it. When I buy shares, and I might want to sell them, I could rotate them like this, just indicate, hey, this was purchased this round. I don't see anybody desiring to sell things off. That only happens if better shares come out, you know, and there's no real clear better shares coming out right now. The shares that are available are the arbitrage shares that are at a lower price over here on their par value than they are over there, and you get a little bit of an extra bonus by getting it. Unlike 1830, you can't immediately cash them in for money. You got to hold them for at least a set of operating rounds. So, you know, unless they're comparable with other companies, they're not as great a deal. But that arbitrage can get quite large until they merge. And that's a key factor here. So, like, this is going to merge probably. Well, then that arbitrage goes away. Those guys go into the bank pool and or possibly into the company stock, depending on, you know, how the merger works out. For both these new companies is they are both starting. He would have had $40 more, just $10 shy. They're both starting, if he had bought one less token, they're both starting with not enough money for a train. That sounds like a problem, but I can release a share to buy the train immediately, and it's not at half value, it's at full value. It is a painful way to start things comparatively. The prices that I was able to start my companies at were not high enough. It's one reason why the chartered companies are better. He probably would have been better off with chartered. His, it's harder to tell because he definitely would not have been able to start it at 82 as a chartered company. I don't know what level he would have been able to start it at, but that's, you know, the difference in a lot in money in the late game could be quite important, and you can float out your shares. That's not an issue. Of course, some of these shares are going to probably end up in the WNR when things come through, and I got to swap tokens. Like I said in the other game, the home station tokens I like just fine over here, but there's no reason for them on the board in particular. And the reason I like them over here is because they're flipped over and tell me which companies are available right now. Over here, though, they're very useful in telling which way the counters are facing when you flip them over. There are other ways you could handle things mechanically, but I find that important. And I also keep these little, I didn't mention this, I keep these little counters. First time I played, I did not. I threw them back in the tray, and then as soon as a merger happened, I would have to put them out there. I figured it's easier just to leave them on the corporation throughout the game. And we're there, even though this is just about ready to be created. Who is going to buy it? Well, it looks like one of the new companies will be the first. Whoever the L&D is. Nope, the WSTL is at 86. It'll be the first one to buy it. And I expect to see some mergers this time. At least the E and H there. So far we have not seen any happen in this game. So the guy I think is the designer, I hope. He hasn't said he's not, but he hasn't said he is yet. At least not in a way that I'm absolutely certain. Did come back with a suggestion. The guy, I think regarding the guy owning the YNN, this guy could just dump his company, you know, before it loses its train and get himself out of problems. Turns out the fact that I didn't do that means that am I screwed? I'm not screwed yet. Where does the B die? The B die is here. Turns out that I went through the stock round without doing that, without, you know, I loaded the video up and he responded to it. And yeah, it is a valid point. He's not in an absolute hell position, but here's the thing. If he does that, is there something that is significantly better? I mean, maybe this company's fucked. Maybe that's all there is to it, and he should have been dumping it. However,
The point is more that he's fucked. He's gone through the early part of the game without making any money, without being able to make money. And so there really wasn't that much of a chance to turn it around, I don't think. There may have been another company that he could have said, you know what, I can flush this and restart. But he's probably then looking at, gee, maybe I'm fighting between 5th and 6th place at this point. Because remember, this is a fairly forgiving game. It's hard to get crushed in it. And right at the beginning, getting cut off like that, I just think he was really screwed. He might have been able to optimize a little better than he has. On the other hand, the YNN may not be that bad. In the long run. It may be as good an option as one of the other companies that are out there. Anyway, I ran the FDR back down to 19 a share, running between these. Has to hit its home. Not enough money for a train. I could have perhaps swallowed, I don't know. At 360, it probably wouldn't have gotten me there. And started to build some track to try to get out to my other company so that I can do my merger and get that freight train running and start making money between the two companies. Because the WSTL isn't in an optimal location itself. But if I can get that freight train down here, hey, that's pretty sweet. It's so weird. I mean, my 3 freight train would get me here at 60, and 60 is 120. Let's forget about the money there. But with 2 extra, I am adding 60 and 20, 80 in exchange for that 60. So I'm only getting a $20 ad. Now, obviously, I could upgrade that and get 10 more bucks. But I have nowhere else I can kind of hit. So I'm coming down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't get to a city. Even if the connection was there, I couldn't get there. It's too far away. Is there another way? Well, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. No. And because it's as the crow flies, it wouldn't help me to like loop around if that was possible and hit this. I could just do this then. It's not how many spaces I haul that freight through, it's how far I haul it. So I don't know. I'm probably not going to upgrade this because I want to help hook up the L&D so that I can merge soon. I love paying out money. I hate swallowing, and that kind of shows here. People have nice combinations. One of the things is it was hard to judge because it's a new game for me. Relatively, yes, I've played 2 games of it, but one of them the trains were really, really cluttered on, and the other one was, again, not by the right rules, so maybe we weren't seeing things quite the same. But man, the SVR just busted out with a 39 run out of nowhere. I mean, I'm looking at the, I actually thought I had close to that with the ESR, but I didn't have this token and I don't have London, so no. That would have been 10, 19, I'm sorry, those are freights. 10, 25, 1, 2, what was it? 1, no, it was out of here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we were looking at 25, 37, somewhere in there. And no, it doesn't happen because of the dots that are down. Instead, I end up, with a little 25 run. And big difference by where you got your dots. If I had 2 more dots, essentially. If I didn't have this dot, why do I have that dot? Well, because I got cut off down here. And I'm going to have to merge to get, into the London run with that company. It ran late in the game. But the SVR ran early. And was this the one? Yeah, this was the one that somebody bid a fortune on, I think, because it was clearly the best company out there, right? And yeah, it's, it's showing that off now. There's no question. But what's interesting is, and it's not just stock prices. Well, you know what it is? No, it is stock prices. So the SVR sold out its initial subscription. And so everybody was getting their bonus through the arbitrage on the WNRs and ESRs. And that's why nobody's holding any SBRs. But that might turn out to be a bad choice. If it's making, $14 extra a share, that may be more than that arbitrage was. If we're looking at, especially that money affects the eventual share price for the company. So, yeah, it was a mistake to go for the cheap money on the arbitrage and just ignore the fact that, this thing has a monster run. But those are the kind of things that you get used to the more playings you have. Like in 1830, I'm pretty damn used to, hey, there's that company, I know what it's going to make. Here, I'm not as comfortable with how variable the runs are going to be, how big a difference there's going to be, especially after the last game where everybody was just running for the same kind of amounts. Now we're seeing the kind of breakouts, and I saw this in the first game as well, the kind of breakouts that I saw there. And clearly, the poor YNN cut off. That's the other end of it. You can really get screwed down to nothing in this, in a way that is hard to break out of. Say that this game is a lot about the track layers and the token placement in a way that some of the other games aren't. So here's the thing with that. That should be fairly easy to judge. Like, it should have been obvious to me that the YNN was a bad starting railroad at the price that I was buying it, given the other price of somebody else who's in the area. Those are the kind of things like the B&O Penn competition in 1830. What changes that in this game? Well, the map changes every time, The particular types of trains influenced what kind of track you want to build, what kind of track's important to you. This might not have been the most important track for a freight train, something else would have been more interesting. And so all the positioning. And what that means is that instead of your standard XX game, one of the factors here is, and this helps make it more interesting that it's a track laying and token placement, is that you have to reassess the board every game. You have to make those decisions. Now, those decisions are not hard decisions. You know what I mean? There's a certain amount of calculation and projection and contemplation about them, but they're ones that if it was a static board, it would be a very uninteresting problem. So if you always had these same companies, same number of players, same tracks, same kind of trains on them, then there would be it would be clear the YNN should never start below the WNR, and maybe vice versa as well. Although I don't think you can cut the WNR off of its good track in the same way, But because it varies every time, it gives you kind of this Euro type feel of have to assess the current tableau for this game, just like in Priests of Ra. Hey, which one of these things is the best? And it's that evaluation of that. Now, what can be problematic about that is, like I said, it is kind of calculable. You could do this projection very, very detailed and come up with this information. And then, it comes to, well, how much AP are you willing to accept in players? Because in 1830, everybody comes in, who knows the game. They just sit down, boom, I know what I'm doing. With this, you never will know what you're doing. You're always faced with a new situation that you can assess, which might make time limits on players more important. But then again, it means the person who can calculate faster, who can do that imagination faster, gets an advantage rather than something else. And it's all based on, what your different style of play is. I'm having fun. I think the variance makes it an interesting thing to solo because I'm being presented with new problems. I'm not able to come out of playing a couple of games of it, though, with I know what I'm going to do as my strategy, because I am going to be facing different things. So like in 1856, I think it is, which is my favorite, I came up with and in 1830, I also came up with things like this. I came up with a particular strategy that's not a killer strategy by any means. It's sort of an aspirational goal that is unreachable at least in the number of players that I tend to play. And it might be reachable in like 4 players. But it's something that is just always in the back of my head. And if I ever sit down and end up playing 56 in 3 or 4 players, boom, I'm going to hit them with that, if I can remember it. All right, enough babble, huh? And the choo-choo, the Brown Train, or Brown Trials, have been released by the buying of the D's, which changes the world for the YNN. Now I'm hooked up. Now I'm making a nice big run, which runs out to be 19 a share. So I'm hitting all these doinkers. And a big pile of money, like $70. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, $70 in the company treasury. So I'm making some good money in here now. It's too late for this player. That's the whole thing. It's not that the company was forever hosed. It's that his share value is forever cut back by not being able to get those early runs that made money. Now, could he have started another company? Yeah, but there's always a cost to starting up a company. It might have been less than what he suffered, but he's got a kind of neat little company now. I don't know how good it's going to be overall. He's got only $275, not enough to get himself a train. If the bees go away here, that's going to cost him $500, which is a lot of these shares, but that's okay. Now we're starting to make some cash. We're starting to push ahead. Those shares will be worth something, and then I could dump the company after it does make money. But yeah, those early runs sucked. And we've got a couple more companies left. What else did we have that was kind of interesting? So we've got the new companies showing up here. The WSTL setup. It could have merged, didn't want to. The L&D could have merged, didn't want to. Both of them have a warranty D train. Not enough cash because they had to sell a share, remember, to buy themselves additional warranties. I don't think you're allowed to sell additional shares to get more warranties on your train. So their trains are kind of shaky. They might actually want to get warranties. And the same problem went with the other guy who had a 5, didn't it? If I can find him. Was the WSTL, I guess, was the first one. There are only 4 of these? Yeah. Okay. These might last a little while, but I doubt it. And that's one of the things with the YNN is he has to come up with enough cash to buy himself one of the permanent trains. Which might, he might not be in the last place because somebody else crashes harder somehow. And yeah, the L&D's track looks really horrendous. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Well, the decision to make this my capital instead of this. This would make a good capital if I was running for London. I only got 2 dots. I don't think I can make it down to London on 2 dots. I'm closed off in this direction, so it would have to be busting through here. There's at least 2 dots I need to get to London. I don't see a way around that. Here, no matter what configuration, and then I need one to run to London. I just don't think I'm going to get that. So now I'm looking more at, well, I would like to run from here, my freight train, to a port on this side where they're a little more valuable in the long run, and see what happens there. And the local train, well, I'm on great local track. I really am. It's not just this. I also got stuff down here I could play with and whatever. So there's a lot of room for local track. I actually could have put a dot here. That might be interesting. Am I the guy who just went? I think I am. I gotta consider that. 'Cause why? Because that would shut down a path up except for this one. And I'm not sure I see any other dots that I'm terribly interested in. Maybe this one. Yeah, I think I can afford a dot here. And make other people's lives a little bit more miserable there. Okay. Yeah, I ran the YNN afterwards, so I probably shouldn't, but that's okay. And yeah, down to the next companies. Oh, it's merger time between the 2 remaining companies, the EUR and the ENH. I want to do it on the EUR because that gives me the home base near London. I'll be dropping my dot on London, and this all looks like a brilliant idea. I'm going to take some stock loss on it, but not a whole lot, I don't think. We'll see what comes out of it. And then I get to make my run with the combined company because I do it before either company ran. And this is the first merger? Looks like it. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, collected up a bunch of this. Stock value, wow, I'm down in stocks. Other people only had one share each, so they just had to spend some money, $55 to make up that stock value. But I've lost, 5 shares that would be producing. Okay. But so what? Good question. Indeed, with all those trains dropping into London, unfortunately I can't run 1, 2, 3 because there's a red barrier there. This would be the ultimate run for me right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, no. So I've got no way to get to London with my current freight train configuration. Well, I've got no way to get to the port with my current configuration. And that's a big deal. And that's actually going to be kind of problematic. So like, I'm going to need a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's the next train, but that's not going to get me far enough. So then I need to maybe branch out further, and maybe I need dots and all kind of stuff that's up in the air right now. But right now I'm able to make a quick run. 1, 2, 3 to here. That counts this town. Oops, did I do this wrong? 1, 2, 3 to here. That counts this town. And then I run the local up this way and the second local up this way, not hitting the port. And it comes out to a 53 run. Well, I want to pay that shit out, even though I only have 2 shares in there. That's a lot of money. Swallow that, and you're just cutting your throat, basically, right? 53, that's 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that stock value looks a lot better now. That's about the stock value that my shares were worth. A little less, but I lost so little off of that. And now, in terms of cash, I'm also making $53. That's probably pretty close to what the 2 companies would make together. In fact, apart, but in fact it's actually higher because I can take advantage of London, which this guy would have trouble hitting. So you see the magic of the mergers. They're not pure magic because of the way the cities, you can't hit the same city twice and stuff like that. Now you can see though, my freight train goes through here for 30 without hitting the city. That's just distance cost. And I'm able to use a skip train, the 2-3, to miss this one, which I got 60 for the freight. So I go 1, boink, 3. And then I hit these doinkers too. And just a lot of money. And you know what? I forgot to add in the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 bucks into my company treasury for running a couple of local trains. Not all mergers work out that well, as I'm sure we'll see. That's one of the better ones that I've done. It was definitely nice. I mean, it did all kind of good things. The only bad thing about it, one of my tokens is stuck over here, where I don't know if I'm going to need it or not. It's not terrible. If I still have a couple of tokens, so I might be able to connect up to that. May be able to run a line going up to the north to one of the ports up there eventually. Especially if I end up with another merger to get me tiles up here. Now, what do I have for tokens? 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like I've got 6 of my 7 allocatable tokens, which means I'm not going to be adding much to my pool. And that's a little problematic. It's going to be hard to get all the way. It's going to be hard for me to get all the way up to the ports up there. And this is closed off, so right here. I could get there this way, though. For whatever value that is. I'm not sure what that is. That could be a freight train running this way. Again, though, you don't know what's going to be open and what's not at the end of the game. So it's like, try to put your claims where you can and see what happens. And that is the end of the first operating round. Doesn't look like
Oh, I may be buying a train. Thinky, do I want a D train? You know, a lot more freight train would be neat. What could I do with an 8 freight train? Alternately, this is a C. Yeah, I like the locals. What if I get a bigger freight train? Now, this is risky because that's not a permanent train. 1, 2, 3. That's getting icky. I was hitting this. 1, 2, maybe 3, 4. I don't know. 5, 6. You know, that's not unappealing. I'm risking my massive train collection though by doing this. Whereas if I run this a couple of times, maybe I get enough to buy a couple of these instead. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I'm making the most money. Odds I buy a train, even I don't. You know. I know if it was me, I'd be buying the train, but I'm a bad person. I choose not to buy the train. And yeah, my gut would be to buy the train, but I know the argument against it is this player may be doing the best. It's hard to tell because this guy's got more shares now. The merger cut into his share pool. He's down to what, 5, 6, 7 shares? And here it's 6, 7, 8, 9 shares. So, you know, a 2-share difference, but look at that price, that payout difference. And that's not going to change, you know. I've got that advantage coming into me, so those EURs are valuable. Of course, he has one of them, so that changes things a little. All right, back later. I just ran the EUR and came out $20 less, and I think I know the reason. If you remember, I was running a freight train up this way and a couple of local trains around. That reason is I think I was counting as if this was a port. So what I'm going to do is that 51 a share, that's not going to really change anything. It was 53 last time. This time I'm just going to hand out 49 a share. It doesn't change anything in the game, but it's correcting an error from before. Impact the stock value. This was at 49. Now, though, I'm going to pay it as though it's the 51, so it goes forward 3 instead of the 2 for the 49. It would have gone forward 3 last time. This time it goes forward 2. I'm just trying to correct a couple bucks difference. There's always this desire, and I know I already talked about it a little bit, for the EU, for example, to buy another train, make a little bit more money. But by doing that, I'm just making the train rush faster and making my good situation last less long. So I want to stay up here, and I want to keep pumping out this big run. And then all this money I'm collecting, yeah, that's $600 there, I'll go towards buying permanent trains. If I waste 360 of that now, I'm not just right in place to buy a 6. And if this goes on for a long time, I'll be able to buy a couple of permanent trains with that company without having to merge again, without having to do anything fancy. Plus, I got another $400 sitting in there that I can cash in. Walk away from the game for a little bit and you forget things. I actually am at 53 this time. That means I get $2 extra on each share. Oops. What does that mean for this? 53 still forward 2. So I'm good, right? 49, 1, 2, 3, 53. Yeah. I've been away for too long, and just, you know, most of a day, well, more than a day away because I needed to sleep last night. The FDR, we're going to merge before we run. And in order to do that, I've already pulled some shares, but we have to determine the share price. And in this case, the WSTL is the lower value at 74. I add another 71, that's 145. I end up with my shares being the same value. So essentially, I just lost the share value of those WSTLs. Terrible, but I need to do this. I need to get this connected. I need the double corporation there. So
Now, the EU is not the only one that's running in the Magic Kingdom. The FDR is actually running heavier. Big freight run through here, and then the Express here. Lots and lots of bucks. 55 a share. Getting enough cash together to get itself permanent trains, and then this big wad of, again, $200 a share at least for the stocks. So that's no swallows needed. We made our merger. We're in good shape. Yes, we threw away, 75 times 5, basically, in terms of what starting the WSDL was. But that money is getting made up by the big stock run, by the big run, increasing the stock value. It's just, one of the mechanisms in the game, a means of getting your trains for these corporations. SVR is getting itself into this kind of position. Now, here's the problem with the SVR. I should have bought one of these shares on the last operating round into here, because I'm up in there with 47. I want to pay out because, hey, the goal of the game is to make money for yourself. Sure, this company doesn't have enough money for its train. I could ditch it if I want to. It's too good a company to do that. The fact that I hadn't bought a share and now it's jumping up probably means that I'm going to have to merge it. That's fine. I probably want to merge it anyway. There are a couple of freight companies available, a couple more here, all kind of goodies out there. That's perfectly okay. But I would have liked to have had that cheap share in there now, earlier. Do I want it now? That's a good question. I think the answer is yes, I want it anyway. Like, I would have bought one last time and not had the money this time, but instead I'm spending 40 bucks more for that share. The danger of it is when I do merge, this stock value goes down, so I actually lose some money. But with 47 runs, I'm making enough right now, so I'm going to get at least one of those. That'll make up for that difference. So I don't think I'm getting terribly hurt. The only problem is, yes, it invests some money that I'd have as a flexible amount that I can use for trains, but I don't particularly want to. I think last game I forgot the Harwich piece existed, and just left a green Y there because that's a space where you cannot upgrade anything other than that. Same with the Ipswich, but I'm more familiar with the Ipswich. The Harwich doesn't bone you, and I needed it now. Maybe nobody needed it last time, but I doubt that. And RLD is also doing a merge. This is the right kind of merge. Yeah, I took a little bit of a hit on the stock value with the L&Ds disappearing. Always the case. You take some cash loss, but you usually make it up right away. But here's the thing. This is the right way to do it. To merge the unchartered company into the chartered company. Now, I forgot to set the FDR here. I did that. And the WNR is also going to be above 100 at 122. That's already figured. But the reason is these were the cheaper... Well, not always, no. To merge the new company into the old company. That's the thing, not chartered into unchartered, or unchartered into chartered. The reason for that is these guys were worth less than the WNR, which has been long running making money. Now, obviously, it's actually merged the one with the lower stock value into the one with the higher stock value. Well, it's not even that. It's because we've been doing that. It is the chartered unchartered. It's having all the shares here in the cheaper company. That's the key. So you want to start trying to make some sense out of my life. You want to start with whichever company has the lesser share value to be the one that's holding the shares. So generally, starting a chartered company first will get its stock value up, and then your unchartered company will be adding the shares in at lower value. So these were in the 70s or something, I don't know, somewhere down around here for the L&Ds. I took them off the board. Do not remember. But it's also good to have the two close in value because then you actually don't lose as much stock value. You don't want one exceedingly higher. That's where we're losing the stock value here. But the WNR at 122, I'm losing less stock value on these shares. Likewise, I'm losing less stock value on the shares that I'm throwing away because they were relatively close in value as well. Right. I think I almost made sense. I gotta pay this one off too. There actually, if this guy buys this, which he will, there aren't enough WNRs, so he's gonna actually have to exchange these for money. No, that's not right. Shit. It's the wrong way. These half shares are the problem. These get automatically exchanged, so it's actually this guy is going to have to exchange his for cash, his half share. I don't know if it's possible. No, it's only with half shares that you end up getting screwed. Yeah, so it's only people who have a single share who end up just getting cash back, which isn't a big deal because we're in the third operating round, or the final operating round of this sequence. And yeah, I'm starting to not make sense. I'm not actually feverish right now, I'm just kind of lost. Now it's getting more questionable about the EU because the WNR, also in the big boys club, actually passed him by and making some big money. Granted, you know, he's got very few shares too. I mean, WNR has less, obviously. So the EUR player is winning currently. He's got more cash, more stock, and he's made the change quicker. So he may not need to shake things up. He may want to just leave them alone. Why rock the boat? You know, they're not going to catch up with a couple dollar change in shares, I assume. Simply because, hey, I've already got some additional shares and more cash on hand to buy more shares. This was actually kind of tricky. I had to run from here. I had to build this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ending at my home. And then, shit. I may have screwed up. I only have a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I also went to my home there. Although, no, I went to here, I think. 1, 2, 3. I went to here. That's right. Get all the doinks I can. Get a lot of cash in the company. No reason to swallow. Even though I'm low on trains, I've got a couple shares and I've got a local train that's pulling in some good money. Right. I may not be able to keep going. We'll see. Trains can be bloody annoying. That's all I have to say. I have no more tokens on the ESR, which sucks. Because I put one up here where I kind of don't need one. It turns out. What could I do about that? Could I do something? Maybe my my track lay is bad. 1, 2, 3. I mean, someday I could come up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I can't make those 2 track lays right now. What this means is I could make a run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out to here at this point. And that would be 130 plus 1, 2, 3, 4. 130 and 120 is 25 a share. I think that's the best I could do. My alternative is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 130 and 1, 2, 3, 90 a share, 220. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I could upgrade this, but I've done a different track lay here, and I'll talk about that in a minute, which would be 120 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 120, 240. What was this? This was like 250, wasn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
because I can't go off board. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the best I could do. So yeah, that would end up as 130, 250. 250 is the best track lay I could build. And it's not a bad run, because if I set this up right, I can get into there, and I think that's actually what I'm going to do. I had upgraded this because in this game, quite often, track lays are more important than a small stock increase. Like, in a lot of the XX games, you just want to run for the most money you can. Every now and then you come to a key track lay. But here, I will not be able to change this track once somebody touches it. Like, if somebody screws with this entrance, I won't be able to get into that entrance. You know? Then I'll be stuck going up this way or coming down that way or whatever. So what the other, and maybe they do the sharp hook here for some reason, just to bone the possibilities, and then all I can do is go up here. So there's a lot of blockage on the tiles that's available that's not available in most XX games, and I find that really weird. So yeah, what I wanted was a crow's foot here, and I'm not, well, I don't have a dot, so yeah. And that gets me to 25 a share, which is where I was. I must have been screwing something up. Maybe I was hitting here. No, I couldn't have been hitting there. I would have been making more money. Don't know. Maybe I was counting to up here somehow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be 13. You know what? I bet you I was cheating and counting this as 12. But don't worry about it. I don't feel like fixing another run. So yeah, that'll be paying out 25 a share. Now this screws up one of the things that, you know, this whole day has been fucked starting this, and the reason I didn't play last night was I was a little feverish and it was late, and I was like, well, I could probably get through the operating round because that doesn't take a lot of brain power, etc. But I didn't want to be done with the operating round, jumping into a stock round without realizing what the track connections are. But now I'm going to have to probably leave for like 8 hours or so. It's just hard for me to find the time to make sure I do the final operating round and the stock round at the same time, at a point when I'm mentally like not deficient right now. We finish up the operating round with 21 a share payment by the YNN. It's collecting local money, running down to there. Got my dot down in Ipswich. That could be really important. It's my last dot in the game. It could also be not important, but the nice thing about it is it hits this. It's got a nice local run I've got set up. I've got a local train. I know I'm going to be using that. I don't know whether or not maybe I'll be able to get a merger into something I want. I am fairly far behind the elephant, so. But remember, top bidder gets the best company if we float it that way. I do not have a whole lot of money. This is the hard part. Do I want to pay $360 on another train? I think so. And in fact, I may be buying a warranty on this one. Let's see. D comes out here. How many trains do we have? We have E's and F's. That's 5 more trains. I don't think I'm going to buy an extra warranty. We'll see. But I am going to buy the train because, yes, more companies are going to come out. More companies are going to come out. More companies are going to come out. One of them may be mine, though. That's the problem. Shit. I have 200 and a WNR 366. That doesn't sound like enough money. Make it 400 or so. So 400 divided by 5. I could start a company with $800. That's not terrible. And I can always save it in another way later.
I'm going to hold on the train because I'm going to try to save it with a merger. I might get lucky and not have to buy this and be able to buy a permanent train instead and work things out, however they go. I do have some cash in that company, but it's not worth a whole hell of a lot. That's going to put me down here, and it's time for me to go. They're a great way to build your company out, but the EUR here has 3, 4, 5, 6 of its 7 tokens available to it. It's not going to grow a lot with another merger. I've got 2 different types of train permit. Now that I'm playing by the rules, that seems sufficient. It's kind of questionable whether I want to start another company. One advantage to starting another company is getting more certificate limit. Because these big 30% shares are really, it's like an 1835, which has some 30% shares. Starting a company comes with a bigger bonus to your certificate limit. However, one big, great company can do you a lot of good. And in this particular case, we're at a point where it's the last non-permanent train available. So starting a new company may not be the wisest thing at this moment. Investing in other people's stock could work, but I could do something else. I got $600 worth of stock sitting in here that I could just buy. That would put over $1,000 in here with local trains that'll be adding cash, which is enough to buy 2 permanent trains, maybe even an $1,100 train, because I got 50 something bucks plus whatever the locals make. I think I'm in pretty good shape to just say, you know what, I'm not interested in any of these new companies. I'm going to end up with something pretty damn good no matter what. And as long as I buy these shares now, I'll be able to buy probably 2 of the cheaper permanent trains. If things don't work out the way I think they will, that's fine. I still won't be in horrible shape no matter what. But I think that's a really good position to be in, to tell you the truth. And we may see other companies making the same choice, like the FDR. My gut, the first time I played, was not on video, but before that, was, hey, merging's great. Well, yeah, but there are other considerations. Don't always merge. Parliament phase is resulting in another interesting period. The ECR is being put up by the YNN owner. He's slipped his way into here. He would love to have this dot, and maybe okay. I thought that was the dot he was getting here. I don't have time to be thinking right now. All right. Yeah, I had it all set up so that I could start something at 82 and put a $10 bid on, but I gotta go shopping. I was hoping to beat that time limit, but I'm pretty sure I don't. Knowing that this is the ECR spot and not this, that means this may not be the best company for the YNN. It may be that the INB is a better company, which I think is here. Right above the SVR home, yeah. So I gotta rethink. I'll put some dice over here to remind me what I'm doing. But yeah, we're gonna have an interesting one. If the ECR was done, the SVR probably also wants that, and he's got more money. He can probably bid higher on getting that sucker started. I think he has space. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 3 more spaces available. Is anybody else interested? Yeah, that's a good question. ESR is probably in play. So then it'll come to who's willing to pay the most to have the best companies for their merger. In this case, I've got a freight company already, so I probably don't need another freight company. I might be interested in something else. But these guys are both interested in freight companies. And right now, there are a few of them available. 4 of them open. All right. Anyway, no play for me. Rethinking the position. There's a few freight trains available. The E&H, which is down here, the INB, which I believe is here. Neither of these are particularly fantastic for the YNN. They're not terrible. This one especially is not bad because I've got this run coming down here, and the YNN has a local. I hooked this all up, but the problem is this can't hook to any of the places it might want to go. So I am indeed going to go with the ECR. It may not be the best thing in the world, but it's the most likely to get me a dot there. I could end up screwed, but if I kind of do, I probably am able to break through here. We'll see. You know, there may be some other direction I could go in as well. So there's some possibility. And I put a $10 bid on. And the SVR wants this. I didn't think they did, but I just realized, yes, they want the freight train. Their question is, would they rather one of these other rails available? So the YNN gets down to here, it needs this dot. The SVR absolutely doesn't need that dot, but this is the easiest hookup. But it's not the easiest in the direction they want to go. So what they'd like to do is get maybe a big freight run running up. On the other hand, this might be their best freight run. But they definitely want a freight train. This one's really easy to hook up. Of course, this one's already hooked up, and it means a dot there. So I'm going to give this a 50-50. I've already checked on the ESR, and they're not interested. But the SVR might be. Nope. So this is going to go for $10, and whatever price that I had set for it, I'll figure out and set it at that. I don't remember if it was 82. I think it was. Over here, whatever company I float, and I'm interested in the INB, I have a ton of money. I can float it up at 100. I can float it higher than 100. If I sell some of these shares, I can float it maybe up to 200. That's appealing. That's more money than floating it at 100 would be. Even if I only buy, say, 5 shares at 200, I've got 5 more shares sitting in the treasury. So I'm going to hold off on chartering, but if somebody tries to charter the INB, I'm in on that bidding. SR, on the other hand, probably wants to charter something. It doesn't want to charter another freight. It wants to get a different permit available. It would ideally like to get a local. Locals, I don't know. I really like locals. They can make pretty good money. Maybe not as much as either a freight or an express can, but in conjunction with a freight, I find them a little better overall, and then they generate extra money. Unfortunately, my only locals are the L&D, which is up here, the WF, which is here, and the L&E, which is here. None of those are great choices. And if I take a look at other companies that I could look at, the ENR is way up here. That's going to be hard for me to get to, but not impossible. Now, in a similar way, I could connect through a couple of ways to the WF. And I kind of like the WF, so that's where I'm going to go. I can put it at $100 if I put up to 30, but I'm looking around and I'm not really sure anybody's going to bid on it. So I'm going to just put it up at 0 and see what I can get. That went without a bid. I could have gone without the bid here, but I had a very low maximum that I wanted to bid. So we got 4 shares of WF. Hey, double green, awesome. I don't know. It makes it easier to understand things, but once they merge, it's all one company. So that's going to throw me into the stock round, and we're back up here, and he's got a whole ton of money. There aren't a whole lot of stocks out there to buy. I already have an ESR. That's probably going to merge. And there are some SVRs at a couple $100, at 150 each or so. The biggie for me is probably those EURs at 200 each. Those I want to make sure all get bought. So I need to reserve $600 to do that. And that's probably where I'm going to be spending my money. Unfortunately for them, some of the people who were counting on dumping a lot of money into their company, like the EUR, found their stock price went down a little bit. The WNR probably the worst. It dropped a couple of shares. Well, EUR dropped a couple too. I still need to get that money in there. The only other option would be to try to float something. The EUR could afford to. He really didn't have the money. He could float a non-chartered at what, 74. He had enough for 77, unless he sells a share. And he could. He had 60%, so he could have sold a share. I think getting the money in there works. Both these companies have a local train, so they have some capacity to generate some income. Plus they're swallowing, obviously. FDR's prices didn't move, though. Nobody was owning any of that. As the other companies start floating out, all of them really, and almost all of the money's used up. This guy's got like $60 left. He doesn't really have anything he could do. He could get rid of one of these shares and trade it for something else, and that might be worthwhile. Because he's got some cash that's not being used. However, some of that cash, the ESR, is going to convert. Maybe he's better off buying a WF, maybe not. The difference in price is a fair amount. Is the ESR going to make a 34 run? Yeah, probably. And some stock value, fuck it, just hold it. WNR is not going anywhere bad. It doesn't look like it's starting another corporation, so it's pretty safe. So he may have as good a shares as he's going to get. This guy has bought an ECR share, which he can't sell now. And he bought it because I guess it was the cheaper way into this YNN share. Although again, well, the YNN's not going to make much. And that combined company looks like it has a pile of cash on it now. Somebody bought a YNN share, actually. They had just that amount of money and just went with that, and I don't know. But for him, he has $150. That's enough to buy this last share of WNR. $200, $300, $400, $500. WNR is going to be going pretty quickly. Nobody wants these 5 trains. So the question is, how do things fall? The INB has to buy a train, and it can't go swapping this around. I'm sorry. Well, it could go swapping one of these around. I don't know if it has to have one that it can run, but it almost certainly, it has tons of money. It almost certainly is going to buy itself one of the 5 trains. So there's one that's gone. The FDR is probably not going to buy one. EUR is not going to buy one. SVR, you know, if I've got one on the INB, I'm probably not going to buy one on both. WNR, I do not want it, which means we go further down. What's further down? ESR, WF, and ECR. Between those two, they're probably going to have it, which means the 6 train may or may not be available when it gets to me. There's only 3 of them there. It looks like the EUR is set to buy 2 of them. It goes ahead of me. FDR might be set to buy 2 of them. In which case, I'm looking at $600 trains or higher. I have 500 and something bucks. If I have a D, I'm kind of fucked. But my local, let me see. My local is going to make at least $50, so that'll get me up to the $600 train. Okay, so that extra $150 isn't going to do me anything. Buying a share of my own company might not be terrible if I buy this one. Unfortunately for me, there's nothing I can buy that's particularly yummy. I could buy a WF, and that'll give me some extra cash for, you know, buying the excess share of the things that are mergers. So I think that's where I'm going to go. I'm not sure it's the best move, but it's the move I'm taking. It's these kind of decisions, you can probably calculate it out and figure it all out, but
that takes the fun out of playing. It really does. Okay, and I think he was happy. And everybody else is basically happy. Nobody has the cash to do anything. So, 3 operating rounds because the D's have been bought. We're out there. Stock market never moves around due to being sold out or anything like that. So the tableau is set. Let's see what happens. And look, most XX games, you're like, oh my God, I'm running out of companies. I better get one so I can get a multiple share or something like that. That doesn't happen in this game. There's always more companies. I mean, there's 16 of them out there. If you have 8 players in the game, that's still 2 companies per person, and usually you only have one. Certificate limit doesn't seem to be that huge a thing. Yeah, it might end up being that way, but part of it is because that end run gives you an added certificate pillow or cushion or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, it's a different. There's a lot of things in it that your standard 18xx feelings aren't really corrected. Like, I want to run a company because I want the president's certificate. You don't really care about that. You want to run it, I don't know, because you think you can run it better than someone else is running their companies, for the most part, which might not be the case. So, for example, this guy over here who bought the YNN, he didn't have to start a company. He could have done the investor route. There's no harm in the investor route in this game. Again, interesting stuff. This one looks like it's about ready to load up, so let's send it.